I'm Dennis Merritt. I'm a Jungian analyst, and I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Yarrow stalk method, a very ancient method for consulting the I Ching. I've been using the I Ching since 1975, and I've always used this Yarrow stalk method. So before you start, you want to write the date down. I'll just put date and your question. It should be a very serious question, something you've been wrestling with for some time or just guidance. Then I'd like to do either a little meditation or smudge myself before I start. And once you're ready to start and feel centered and have your question in mind, it should be 8 words or less, just so it's good and concise. So here are yarrow stalks. It's a very common plant. It's kind of like a weed. And you want 50 stalks about 1 foot long, firm and straight. So you open your bundle and shake the stalks up and down till they feel like they're a group. And then while you're thinking of your question, remove 1 stick, set it off to the right, and you don't use that the rest of the time. And then holding the stalks parallel to the ground, quickly and cleanly divide the bundle into 2 relatively equal piles. Don't be shifting sticks back and forth. You do all your manipulating with your right hand. The only thing you do with your left hand is you hold. So you start with the right bundle with the right hand, you go to the left bundle, you come back to the right. So with the right hand, you take 1 stick from the right pile, hold it in the left hand between these 2 fingers. With the right hand, pick up the left pile, hold it in your hand, and then kind of squeeze them down so you can count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. So I'm counting off by 4 here. 4 or fewer, 1. You put that stick between these 2 fingers. With the right hand, go back to the right pile, put it in the left hand, flatten them out and count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. So 4 or fewer, 3. The first time you count through, you should have 5 or 9 sticks. So while they're separated, you can easily count them. You can see that I have 5 sticks, means I counted correctly. So set those sticks off to the left, and the first time through, separate 1 stalk. Then, leaving this 50th stick on the side the whole time, combine these 2 bundles here, and shake them up and down till they feel like a group again. Makes it easier to separate cleanly. Holding parallel to the floor, quickly and cleanly divide them into 2 relatively equal bundles and repeat the process. With the right hand, 1 stick from the right pile. With the right hand, pick up the left pile, put it in the left hand, count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. Okay, 4 or fewer, 1. Put that in the left hand between these 2 fingers. With the right hand, back to the right pile, pick it up, put it in the left hand, flatten the sticks out so you can count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. This represents the 4 phases in any cycle of growth: spring, growth, harvest, and trial. 2, while they're spread apart, count them. You can see I have 4. The second and third time you count, you should end up with 4 or 8. Put those sticks off to the left. Then for the third time, pick up these stalks, shake them up and down till they feel like they're a bundle, parallel to the floor, quickly and cleanly separate into 2 relatively equal bundles, right hand, right pile, 1 stick. pick up the left pile with the right hand, put it in the left hand, flatten them out till you have an easy way to count by 4 until you have 4 or fewer. 3, put that between these 2 fingers, back to the right pile with the right hand, pick up the bundle, hold in the left hand, flatten them out, count by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. 4 or fewer, 4, total 8. Second and third time through, you should have 4 or 8 stalks. So that's the first cast for the first line. Then what you do is you give 8 a value of 2, 4 a value of 3. So here I have a bundle of 4, a bundle of 4, a bundle of 8, so that's 3, and 3, and 2, so that's 6, 7, 8. So the total there is 8. And then at least 6 lines from the top, write down the number 8. Then, to start the second line, you combine everything except this 50th stalk here and repeat the process. So we'll do 2 lines. Parallel to the floor, quickly and cleanly, 2 relatively equal bundles, right hand, 1 stick from the right pile, hold in the left hand, pick up the left bundle, count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer sticks. So 4 or fewer, 4. So you hold that between the ring finger and the middle finger. Right hand, pick up the right pile, count through the right pile by 4. Okay, 4 or fewer. You can see that I have 4, total 9. While they're spread out, easiest to count. The first time you do a cast for a line, you should have 5 or 9. Separate this 1 stick so you're left with either 4 or 8, because the next 2 times you're going to get 4s or 8s. So we combine these 2 piles again. 50th stick stays out the entire time, parallel to the floor. Separate into 2 bundles. 1 stick from the right. Count through the left. Okay, flatten them out. It makes it easier to count. 4 or fewer, 4. Put that between these 2 fingers. Pick up the right pile. Hold in the left hand. Count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer stalks. All right, 4 or fewer, 3. Total, you can see that I have 8. The second and third time you do this, you should have 4 or 8. So it means you counted correctly. Then, recombine one more time. Again, divide into 2 bundles, 1 stick from the right pile. Count through by 4 till you have 4 or fewer stalks. Wilhelm calls these 4 a supreme success, furthering, and perseverance. Then back to the right pile. Hold in the left hand, count off by 4 until you have 4 or fewer. 4, total 8. Put that over here. And you have cast for the second line in the hexagram. So again, giving 4 a value of 3, 8 a value of 2, you can see I have a group of 8, a group of 8, a group of 8. So that's 2, 4, 6. So you write that down. Write down the number 6. Then you combine all the stalks and repeat this process 4 more times. So that's the basics, and I'll just make up some numbers so we can go on to the next step. An 8 and a 6. So let's do a 7, a 9, an 8, and a 7. So let's imagine that we generated these 4 more lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexagrams, 6 lines. So we'll pretend that we're done here. As soon as you're finished with those 6 lines, tie up your sticks, put them in a safe place, and store at shoulder height or above. That's out of respect. And I like to say to keep them away from cats and kids. So there are only 4 numbers we could have gotten: 6, 7, 8, and 9. And 6 is called an old yin, 7 a young yang, 8 a young yin, and 9 an old yang. So the 6 and the 9s are called changing lines because it's a little more improbable to have gotten when we were casting either all 8s in terms of number of stalks or all 4s. Usually it's a combination of 8s and 4s. So using this code, starting from the bottom, the Chinese always work from the bottom up, draw out your hexagram. So here we have an 8, a 6, a 7, a 9, an 8, and a 7. Now, we have to determine what hexagram we got. So this is one of the translations that I use. It's wing. And on the vertical axis, you have the lower 3 lines. And on the horizontal axis, you have the upper 3 lines, the upper trigrams. So just considering whether they're solid or broken, yin or yang, disregard whether they're changing or not. You can see here that we have yin, yin, yang. So we look on the vertical axis of the lower trigrams for yin, yin, yang. There it is, ken. And then we look at the upper 3 lines. And again, disregarding whether they're old or young, we have yang, yin, yang. So going across the horizontal axis, we see that yang, yin, yang is here. So cross-indexing, we end up with 56. 56, write that down. And because we have changing lines, we will get a second hexagram. So to get that, you leave the unchanging lines as they are, change the changings to their opposites. So it goes like this for the Chinese, part of the beauty of their system. An old yin goes into a young yang, and an old yang goes into a young yin. The yang is sort of the archetypal, masculine, firm, strong, spirit, bright. Yin is sort of archetypal, feminine, holding, dark, moist. An excess of the yin would be too dark, too moist, like flooding. An excess of the yang would be like too firm, too bright, too arid, and they will revert to their opposites. So, to draw your second hexagram, leave the unchanging lines as they are, so 8 stays 8. But here's a changing. It's an old yin, that's that broken line with the X in the middle. That becomes a young yang. 7 stays as it is. Here's an old yang. That breaks down to become a young yin. And the top 2 lines are not changing, so they stay as they are. Then you go back into the index and see what your new hexagram is. So from the bottom, yin, yang, yang, and we look at a vertical axis to see where yin, yang, yang is. That's over here. And then we look for the top trigram, the top 3 lines, yin, yin, yang. And that, here we go, yin, yin, yang. So cross indexing, we get 18. So you write that down. And then you look in whatever translations you're working with, and you read the answer for 56 and 18. 56 then would be the hexagram for where you are now with regard to your question. And the second hexagram, 18, is where you're going to be at some future date. So when you're reading the answer in the book, you will read everything it says about 56 until you get to the lines. So we'll just look in this translation of Wing, 56, and he calls it traveling. So you read everything that it says about traveling, and Wing breaks it down to whether it's a question about a business situation, a personal relationship, or a spiritual issue. And he also has a paragraph if you didn't get any changing lines. Then here are the lines, and you only read the changing lines. So the Chinese number it from the bottom up. So from the bottom up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got a changing line in the second place, so you read what it says about the second line. You got a changing line in the fourth place, so you read what it says about the fourth place. And then you read what it says under hexagram 18. You don't read any of the lines because you've already changed them. So depending on what type of question you ask, you can read the answer to whether it's business, personal, or spiritual. So one thing I should mention is that it's easy to make a mistake counting by 4, believe it or not. The common mistake is you put down 5 sticks instead of 4. And then what you do, you set the sticks that have been in your fingers on the side, and then you count through the piles here, and you're going to have 1 stick remaining. So you just take that out, put it on the side, it's okay. It was a counting error, and that's it. But you have to make sure you catch that error before you go on to the next cast. So that's briefly how you do it. And if you want to get more information about things that I've written about the I Ching, then you can go to the C.G. Jung Institute of Chicago and look under store and then search and then type in my name, Dennis Merritt, M-E-R-R-I-T-T. And what will come up is a talk I gave called Dreams, the I Ching, and the Analytic Process. It's about a fellow I worked with in analysis, his 3rd or 4th round analysis for a year and a half. And 6 times during our intensive work with dreams, he either was told to consult the Jing at a particular point in the work, or a hexagram was given to him, or he saw the hexagram developing in the dream. The other thing you can do is go to my website, ecojung.com, look under articles, and then read the article Use of the I Ching in the Analytic Setting. I talk about what translations I use, how to use the I Ching intelligently, and I give examples from my use as a psychoanalyst. I also do an I Ching workshop and I Ching consultations. Then in Jungian ecopsychology.com, another website that I have, that's Jungian, ecopsychology, ECO, psychology.com. You can look on the blog archive on the right column, and there will be listed in 2018 an hour-long podcast of a radio interview I did on synchronicity and the I Ching. So I will post the exact process that I just demonstrated here on my Eco Jung website, and my Email address is dennismerritt4@hotmail.com. You can order Yarrow stalks online. Usually they are not a foot long, but try to collect your own stalks from areas that are symbolically important to you. Again, you need 50 of them, relatively straight and firm. So I wish you success in using the Jing. I think of it as one of the ultimate self-help books, and it's one of the greatest books of wisdom on the planet.